Madecraft is developing and investing in the next generation of learning content. Learn more at onlymadecraft.com.
Hi, welcome to the 1 in 20 show, where we're looking to find the next 1 in 20 successful individuals who are pursuing their passions so that you can too. And today we're joined by Justin. Justin Sayre is a writer, author, and comedian based out of LA and New York City. He is known for his long run in cabaret and comedy show The Meeting in New York City for many years. He then took a job as a writer for CBS's Two Broke Girls and continued to write plays and books on the side. His unique 12-part show, Ravenswood Manor, is now playing at the Celebration Theater in Los Angeles. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
It's really good to have you here.
It's good to have you.
It's a nice
here.
early morning.
I mean, this is where you live, so I don't know.
This is my
it's
place.
Good for you to be here.
It is good to be.
Good for us all to be
Oh my
here.
gosh. Well, you look great.
Well, I try.
Yeah, I love your
know.
outfit.
Oh,
Everything looks
well,
great. You're
yeah,
on point.
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of start and dive in. You've had so many amazing accolades throughout the years, throughout your arts-based career.
Sure.
And all of your write-ups. And
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to just dive into what kind of got you into it. This is like a very up-and-coming based theme. So
Yeah.
what got you into the arts?
I don't know. I really don't know. Because nobody in my family was artistic. That's not true. My my grandfather's sister was on Broadway, but she died of a tooth infection.
Oh my gosh.
So it was the 20s. It was a very different time. But nobody was really artistic in my family. And then I could sing. So that started opening kind of little paths for me. And I started singing classical music as a young kid. Mm-hmm. And then I was always really interested in comedy. So that kind of became a path that I wanted to pursue. And, and then I think about 13, this is a funny story. This is a story. Do you want a story?
Yeah, go ahead. I love it. Yeah.
Since we're talking
Yeah.
like people. When I was 13, I was in a recital at this local college. I'd conned my parents into getting me voice lessons for some, because I wanted them.
Yeah.
So I was doing this song, and right in the middle of the song, the lights cut out in the whole theater. It was the summer, and the power went out.
Yeah.
Because everybody was running their air conditions and whatever.
Yeah, we know it in LA.
Oh,
yeah,
surely.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
And the power went out, and I was on stage, and there's no power. We're all sitting in complete darkness. So I started telling jokes, and the audience started laughing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. This is the safest place in the world you can be, because no matter what happens, you can always save it. You can always figure something out. Mm-hmm. And the lights came back on. I finished the song and walked off, and I was like, this is it. Whatever else happens, this is it. And that night, Vivian Blaine, who was in the original Guys and Dolls, was in the audience. Wow. And she walked up to me at 13 and said, whatever it is, kid, you got it.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, I can do this. All right.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that. It was really it came out of a performing. I started as an actor and a performer that way. Mm-hmm. And then I was an actor for several years in New York. Mm-hmm. And then around about 10 years ago now, I started writing my own show, which originally was called The Meeting.
Oh, really? Yes.
And that was a monthly comedy variety show that I wrote in New York for about 8 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it all... It seems like a lot of variant paths, but I think they've all kind of led back to each other in some ways.
And I feel like the arts in what you're saying, I think is just that the arts are so transcendent in whatever path you pursue. Like you have a background in both theater, stand-up, film. You have all of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how somebody can go from one thing and easily transfer into another and come back out with persistence and drive and determination.
Sure.
And so I guess in the vein of theater, what's your play Ravenswood Manor about? Like,
So
this is a
yes.
really fantastic thing. That's
So
coming
we're doing this play called Ravenswood Manor here in LA, and it's actually got a series of plays, or a very long one, depending on how you watch it. So we do 6 weeks here in LA at the Celebration Theater, and it's a camp horror soap opera. So it's a very funny kind of take on some of those old kind of horror serials, like A Dark Shadows, which was a horror kind of soap opera in the 60s, late 60s. And unlike a lot of plays where you would go and kind of see one play, we do 6 new episodes of this show every week. So every week you come and you see the continuing story of these strange characters from the small town of Ravenswood, Maine, as they, are werewolves and witches and all sorts of things, craziness, just in time for Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's a continuing story. So you can come and stop in for one night and kind of get a complete story and see what happens to them just that week. We do a recap every week so you can figure out what's happened previously. And at the end, it really kind of, you see this, hopefully you see an arc that makes sense for the entirety of it. But it's been a real joy, and it's been an amazing process to kind of be part of, especially with this incredible cast. We're working with people like Drew Droege and Sam Pancake, who are both incredible actors. Danielle Gaither, who's an incredible actor, and Angela Cristanello, Ryan Garcia, Leslie Ann Huff, Tom DeTrinis, who's directing and is wonderful. So it's been really a wonderful process thus far. Yeah,
amazing.
It's really great.
2 things that come to mind as you said that was, one, we kind of talked about this before we started, was LA Theater is making a tremendous not necessarily comeback, it's been there, but it is definitely thriving now in LA. And you mentioned that audiences now want to come and see the theater again.
Yeah,
because they don't know what it's like, a lot of them.
Well, I think everybody right now, we live in such a digital age where there are very few events you have to show up for in life.
Right.
And there are very few kind of rituals you have to do. And I think the theater, in a very real way, is a ritual, is something you have to show up for. And I think people are looking for those kinds of things. They're looking for experiences. And strangely, this ancient experience is something that I think people are really responding to again in a different way, because there's nothing like it. When you sit in a room with somebody that's having an experience, it's quite different. I mean, it's incredibly powerful. I think you remember it differently than you remember anything else. And film and television, while great, I love them and work in both.
Right.
I think it's different, and I think the fact that you can watch a movie on your phone it's not a movie experience like it used to be. It's just different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you kind of hit it on the head. I think it's probably why theater is making a comeback here.
Sure.
It's always in New York and on Broadway, but here it's just, there are people who, I keep thinking about this with streaming and like you said, all of the accessibility we have toward the arts now.
Yeah.
There's people that are becoming kind of numb, I think, to it because they can binge. And something that's brilliant about your show is just that you're breaking it up and not to one sitting, but into a bunch of different episodes, as it were. But there is something to be said about theater in LA growing, because I think people are ready for something new. I think they're ready to be engaged.
Sure, and you can be very experimental in theater as well, just because of the immediacy of it. I used to say when we were doing the meeting in New York, people get nervous, or you'd be backstage and talking to folks, and I would always say, listen, it's an hour and a half out of somebody's life. If it's going to be terrible, it's okay. There are much worse. It was never, luckily. Yeah. But it's not the end of the world,
Right, sure.
It's a lot worse when you've made a $17 million movie and it's a real tanker. If you have an off night in Hamlet, people forgive you.
Yeah. Right. That's very true.
Hopefully.
Hopefully they do. Yeah. Sure. I don't know. Shakespeare.
I don't know.
But That's very interesting. And as a writer, this is
Yeah.
an angle I wanted to kind of take is when you think about writing for theater, like you've been doing your show
yes.
for just the spell of time as well, but you've also wrote for Two Broke Girls on TV.
Yes.
You've done a lot of television.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the bridging gap, or is there like a difference between writing for screen versus for stage?
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference. I think stage has certainly been influenced by screen now because I think Tennessee Williams said that movies changed how we dream. You know, you can be anywhere very quickly.
Very quickly.
And, you know, there's less of a kind of, oh, I'm in this space and now I'm in this space, which theater kind of came out of. But I think that writing for television certainly it made me a better writer in some ways because there was such, you know, you only have 21 minutes.
Right.
And in that time, you have to tell a complete story with a beginning, middle, and end. And the economy of writing like that is severe. You know, you got to get all of it out so people can follow the story. You know?
Right.
Where in theater there is a perception that there's more time, but I don't think there's actually more time. I think you just live with the characters differently. You know, when you're in a television show, they're kind of flashing by you, and okay, now we're going here, and Laverne and Shirley need to get out of this. All right, great. In the theater, it should move with the same pace, but it's living with the characters and saying, oh, okay, well, I see who she is in this way, or I see this. You know, you get different sides of them.
Right.
So I think writing for both has been great for me and really helped, I think, in both arenas. But I think it's just the time you get to spend with them, but the pace that you still keep.
Right. How hard is it to write comedy for the screen?
For the screen? It depends. It really depends. I started writing comedy for myself. So writing it for other people was initially a challenge because you know your own rhythms. You know a joke that you can get that other people maybe wouldn't get. So that was a challenge early on. But I think writing for comedy for the screen, I don't know. I mean, I've been very, very lucky to work with. My first job writing on television was writing jokes for Jen Coolidge and, you know, Kat Denning. So amazing performers who can nail a joke. You know, you just say, oh, do this, you know, incredible timing. But I think, you know, I don't know, you don't want to, there is a certain kind of cleverness that you know, sometimes you get a laugh in the theater because people are like, that's very clever. You know, chortle.
Right.
You know, that I don't know works on network television. I don't know that, you know, we're not all writing Frasier, thank God. But, you know, I think there's a different, you're kind of always arranging to your audience, kind of playing to what they need.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's so terribly different, you know. And you also figure out what you're good at, you know. What the amazing thing of writing for a show like Two Broke Girls, where we pitch jokes all night.
I'm sure.
You know, we would write a script and then go to the soundstage to record the show and rewrite jokes all night. So 5 and 6 hours.
Wow.
It really became such a kind of a marathon that at this point now, having done that for 3 years and then doing all the other things that I've done, I really just can sit and go, oh, you need a new joke? Okay, fine. Here, how's this? How's this? You know, you just kind of get into that arena of just, okay, here's another one. How about that?
Right.
You don't like that? All right, we'll try again.
Okay.
You know, it's in the impossible task. I never mind writing jokes. So.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think what that kind of demonstrates more than anything is a mastery of how to write for
sure.
And I think that's something that maybe is is there. It's existing with shows like SNL and with different things where they're writing jokes and writing gags all the time. But I actually heard it said too that comics are actually some of the deepest people that we have in society, in that they really are in tune with their emotions, or in tune with the culture. So does that come from a different place for you? Do you just kind of did you pursue comedy just as a joke, or like is there something that is deeper there?
No, I think I think it was, I wanted to be a very serious actor, and was for a little while. But what you realize, if you can be funny, you realize that not everybody can. It's a real skill. The truth is, and this is horrible to say, but I think there's a lot more people that can be dramatic actors than can be comedic actors. It is a very different skill to be funny. And it is a very different skill to land jokes. Very different. And you see it all the time. I see it all the time. Brilliant actors who just they're not funny. Yeah. They're just not.
Right.
And it's a different skill set. It's not to make one less or more. It's not that. But if you have the skill to be funny, why not use it?
Right.
And I think that was a big turning point for me to be like, oh, well, I can be funny. I know how to do this. But it always came out of something kind of deeper than being silly, or it was, the show that I wrote in New York, The Meeting, came out of a real need for talking about things that were important to an LGBT community, things that were important in a political way, but also kind of, a lot of people would come to me during the years that we did that show and say, it's like gay church. I just come and, and I think it was, for a long time, it was really about connection and very important in that way. But, I also came out of, I was talking to a friend recently and talking about how you kind of get into these modes. And I remember as a very young child listening to, my grandparents had recordings of old radio shows from the 40s, and I would listen to them and write down how jokes were made, and how, if you wait 3 beats, that's funnier, but it was something that kind of all turned around when I started watching, and this makes me sound so old, but Charlie Chaplin. Now, those movies were old when I watched them. But, but, he was somebody who I always look up to, because it was this incredible way of when you make an audience laugh, they listen to you in a different way. They're very actively listening to you because they're trying to listen for the next punchline, for the next joke. So they're in tune with you in a different way. And the power that you have there as a comedic writer or as a comedic actor is that they're so into what you're saying that you can really hit them hard, and you can really make a point so much clearer and so much more poignantly because they're so in tune with what you're doing.
Right.
So Chaplin did it all the time. There'd be these beautiful routines that are so elegant and funny, and then all of a sudden he takes, one shot of the kid kind of breaking down, and you see, oh wow, this is somebody's real life. There's a whole different level here. And that was something I always wanted to do, and I always feel like you can do in comedy.
Yes, that's
more
wonderful.
So.
That's wonderful. That actually hits on a random thread that I was just thinking about, but John Hughes had the ability to do stuff like that. What you just mentioned about Chaplin reminds me of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where you have a wickedly funny movie the entire time, and then it ends with such a somber note.
Absolutely.
And there's something about comedy that you were saying that really loops in with that emotion of drawing people in, connecting people in a way that other genres can do. Yeah. But I don't know if it's as effective because it takes you on such a journey.
Yes.
Funny, and then meaningful.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's real. And when it's done well, there's something, really uplifting about it in a different way. You live with a comedy in a different way. It's even the most ridiculous comedies, which, my show is certainly. But, you just live with those characters in a different way. I think it's a remarkable thing.
That's very
It's really
interesting.
remarkable
That's
thing.
just awesome. This is already going so wonderfully. I think it's just important for people to hear that the arts span so many more things. Like something that really comes up a lot on the show is actors who are willing to move to LA to make it work, but maybe don't have the right head on them that this is the most saturated industry in LA.
Yes, it's a company town.
Yeah, it's a company town, and so I guess what I was going to lead into is just kind of how do you pursue the arts, maybe as a writer or as an actor? Like, what's your perspective on how you get into that industry in LA?
I don't know, because I came out here with a job. So it's very different for me. And I say that very wholeheartedly. I went to New York first, and I moved to New York when I was 17 and went to college in New York to study theater, and then worked in New York as an actor, started writing my show. Michael Patrick King, who did Sex and the City, saw my show in New York and asked me if I'd ever thought of writing for television.
Wow.
And I said no. But I said, sure, if you want me to. And he said, yes, I would like you to come and write for Two Broke Girls. So I moved out here and had a job.
That's amazing.
I didn't know, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how long the scripts had to be. I didn't know pages. There's all these different colored pages for different drafts. Didn't know anything. So I came out here and really worked very, very hard those first weeks on the job, taking home scripts and reading through them and saying, oh, this is the edit and this is who this is. And okay, mapping out the terrain of this new experience. And I'm glad, I have to say, I think I'm glad that I came to LA when I did. Because, the thing about LA that I love, it's so beautiful. And every day's gorgeous. But I think just the environment leads you to believe that you have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I grew up on the East Coast in the North, where it was very cold very quickly, and we didn't have a lot of time. So I grew up with that kind of angst, which I am thankful for all the time, because out here you can kind of get complacent and say, oh, well, I have time to do it tomorrow. You really don't. You got to get on it. And I appreciate that I have that to come out here. But I think the thing about LA is there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of different ways that you can make it happen. But I think what you have to do, and what I would suggest for everybody, is really figure out who you are is important.
Very.
And really figure out what you want to do, because there are a lot of different. Now figuring out what you want to do, not to put too fine a point on it, but to simply say, okay, well, what are the things that are important to you? Because you can't. What I found, certainly in the strangeness of my own career, I wanted to be a classical actor. I wanted to just do Shakespeare forever. That wasn't going to happen. Not that I wasn't good at it,
Right.
but it wasn't going to happen. Nobody wanted to see my Hamlet except a very small group of people, which would have been fun for that one night, but otherwise. But what I didn't know, that I always wanted to tell stories, that I always wanted to be myself and really kind of express the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
And in doing that, I was able to say yes to so many different projects. So when I started writing my own show, that was, okay, well, it's still that. It still covers those bases. When, I wrote my first book, it was like, oh, that's still part of what this experience is. When the television opportunity came, oh, okay, this is still incongruous with, or in Congress, rather, with everything else that's going on. So I think you have to, but that comes from a deep knowledge of who you are and,
Exactly.
and what you're really about.
Right.
And it's always evolving as well, you know.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've heard. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard from a lot of just people who have been in the industry for a long time that my dad's a mixer at Universal, and he's kind of told me that over the years as well. Is just that you have to be very in tune with who you are.
Yeah.
And you have to be realistic with yourself. And I think that might be half the battle of people who get here and,
Sure.
like you said, think that they have more time to do something than what they really
sure,
should.
Sure. Yeah.
Opportunities are there if you're willing to jump on them in the moment, not as, oh, let me take you up on that in a week.
Oh,
It's
no.
gone.
Yeah.
It's come and gone, and you missed
Yeah.
the chance.
Gotta say yes.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's very inspiring to hear kind of your journey that
Yeah.
you grew in that East Coast mindset. You
Sure.
brought it here, and were able to adapt
Yeah.
it really fast.
Well, yeah, and I also always want to do things well.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to be, I don't know what's going on, you know. So, I had a job and they were paying for my lunch every day. I have to go.
Yeah.
I have to show up.
Yeah.
And that was, it was also, I didn't come out of a lot of people will tell you, especially staff writers when you're getting started on the show, you're just there to kind of assist. You're there to learn the ropes. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So my first day, I said, here's a couple of jokes I wrote. I got a couple of stories. I thought I really had to show up with a lot of material, which everybody was really shocked at. But they're paying me. I gotta, how dare I?
Above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those things that I think knowing myself helped with. I'm glad I came to LA when I did. Right. I think it would have been much harder to come to LA as a younger person for me personally.
And I think that's kind of the current climate that might be difficult is with what we talked about earlier, the saturation of streaming, the saturation of accessibility. It's made that market implode because there's so many people that now want to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's very interesting now, like almost case study through the show to have people like yourself on and hear them talk about their journey experience because it is so niche. The way that it happened was so unique. But there's a work ethic that sets you apart from somebody with your level of talent who didn't go as hard.
Well, it's different. Yeah. It's just different. I think that's what you get to a certain age and you think, all right, well, everybody has their own journey and, But for me, I really always wanted to, when we go back and talk about even Michael Patrick King calling, I had thought of writing television. I thought I was going to do downtown weird theater in these little theaters forever. I thought that was my life. And I would have been perfectly happy because it was creative and fun and I was working with amazing people. So, it was like, and now this new opportunity happens and you go in a different direction. And that's great. But, I don't know. I think there's a lot of, I wanted to get into the arts because I wanted to work and make work. I always wanted that. And I think that there can be a difference sometimes where you see a lot of people. I see a lot of people on like Instagram and things like that. And they're, like, oh my God, if I get to 20,000 followers, I'm going to, heaven will be achieved. And it won't be. No. You'll just have a lot of people that look at you.
Right. That's a really good way of putting it.
That's people will look at you. And that's great. People should be looking at you.
Right.
But you have to back it up with something, or you're just there to be looked at, which is also a fine thing. I am subscribed to many people on Instagram who I just like to see occasionally. That's,
right.
But if you want to be an artist, you come out of I came out of a downtown scene where it was people making art downtown in New York in these little theaters for their whole lives. And it was a constant, what's the next show? What's the next, I look at artists like John Kelly or Penny Arcade or Justin Vivian Bond, who were and are mentors for me, who always were, even in their 60s now, like reinventing what they're doing and who they are and the work that comes along with that. I think is really challenging and fun. So I'm always up for a yes, but who knows what the next yes will be, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, that's really exciting and fun. But let's go to a break real quick, and we'll be right back.
Sure.
Hey guys, this episode is sponsored by Madecraft. Madecraft is looking to develop the next generation of leaders through making learning content for platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook. It's a really great tool that you can use to expand on your skill set, kind of like how we talk about on this show, and take your skills to the next level. So be sure to check out their website at onlymadecraft.com and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Well, anyway, we're back. So
Sure.
welcome back.
Thanks.
You know, a thread that I kind of wanted to touch on now that it's kind of different, but we've just kind of been open about discussing a lot of the arts, and one of those things is privately versus publicly funded arts. This is more of like a big picture thing, but what's kind of your viewpoint on that? Like, how do you feel the arts should be monetized? Should it be more supported publicly? Like,
I think it should be more supported publicly. I absolutely do. I think that when you think about when you think about how much money the arts bring into this country, it's the primary industry right now of this country, to be perfectly honest. And to think about how few institutions we have to really give people money, I think that is detrimental. And I also think it's kind of what ends up happening is, and I've said this for a very long time, you end up getting a kind of a homogenization of everything, because to be an artist, you have to make a certain amount of money, you know, to kind of sustain yourself.
yeah,
And in doing that, you have to do things like go to, you know, so many successful writers and playwrights and different things, you know, go into the college system because that's where they can have a steady income.
right,
But what ends up happening is then they, you know, you get a lot of work that's all the same, because there's kind of institutions there, and you don't get the adventuresome kind of new creators, because there aren't as many grants, or there aren't as many programs where people can really get funding for new work.
right.
And I think new work is the stuff that really, it may make us uncomfortable, but it certainly is the stuff that pushes us forward.
Yeah, we need it.
Absolutely. So I think there should be a lot more funding, and I think there should be a lot more funding across the board. You know, you also, I think, have to kind of, we have to, this is very philosophical. I'm sorry if it's going that way.
Go for it.
But I think we also have to change the setting of what makes a successful artist, you know? There are some people who will never be on Broadway, but are great regional actors and fantastic actors. And that is a very valid and important part of being an artist, and they are an artist. And then there are other people who want to do it on an amateur level and just be great and feel that kind of pride in making something.
Right.
And I think that's also important. And then there are people that are, you know, superstars, which is tremendous as well. And we have to see that it's all part of a continuum that you're part of and you're participating in.
Right.
And start giving people back some agency over the stuff that they make, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to invest in people's art making on all levels.
Yeah.
And then see what happens, you know?
And you definitely hit the nail on the head with the fact that it is the #1 industry
Oh,
in
sure.
America, because it's fantastic. I mean, the whole industry works so beautifully, and it's a huge money earner, and it's, you know, it's all of those things. But I agree with you, because I think that there are a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine who were studying film with me in school that really wanted to dive into it, but didn't really know how to take that first step because they never, you know, you have GoFundMe, you have those things to try to raise money for a short or for a film. They hardly ever work unless you have something that really is powerful. But then they gave up on it because it was just like, it's too hard, and
it's very
my priorities
hard.
change, and I don't
It's very
know.
hard. You see it all. I mean, out of the people that I went to college with, And I went for musical theater, which is...
Where did you go, by the way?
I went to NYU.
Very cool.
Which was ridiculous. But but I mean, also going to school for music, but ridiculousness. Sorry, everybody.
No, it's... Hey, I hear you.
But, out of the people that I think I was in a class of 25, I think there are 3 of us that are still in it, which is just the way it happens and is understandable and fine. But, it's also an adjustment for folks that I don't think an arts education is ever bad. I think it kind of opens up your humanity and makes you think about people in different ways. It certainly builds a lot of empathy. But I think that we also have to, like I said a little bit earlier, you have to think about that continuum of work and where you're kind of going to fall on it as well.
Yeah.
And it is very expensive, and we have to also kind of change that mentality about money making for it as well. Like I was talking to you about Charles Ludlam during the break, and he ran a theater company in New York, very successful, won a bunch of Obies, was invented a kind of theater for himself, but didn't always have a lot of money. And it's those people, like even somebody like Orson Welles, he would go and do a commercial so that he could put all the money back into his film. So it's always been a struggle, but I wish there were more places and more resources for people to make work, because I think that it's important for people to be making work.
And I think, to echo that as well, something you mentioned too is there is a ridiculous factor associated with pursuing acting on a collegiate level.
Sure.
In the sense that at NYU,
Sure.
I have friends at NYU who
yeah.
are doing musical theater, and they drop $90 a year.
Oh my God.
And it's unreal because
how would you ever make that back?
No, you can't.
Kristen Chenoweth couldn't do it.
Even she can't. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's crazy.
And that's something that is a real thing that is happening. Is now, people are in debt, not that route, but I'm speaking of more the university system in general.
Oh yeah.
Is now, they're just big business. They're making all this money, putting people in debt, and most of the time, if you're arts based in school,
I have two friends, and maybe they'll listen to this and be insulted, but that's okay. Who have masters in acting, masters. They're not very good. I won't say who they are, but the fact that they have a certificate that says they're a master makes me enraged. and they paid $120,000 to get a no. Mm-hmm. No, don't do it. No. There's a piece of advice. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's so true. But that's
come to you can give me $1,000. I will sign something that says you're pretty good. You can put it in a frame.
That's a perfect summation of how
absolutely.
To put it. Because that's the thing is
don't do it.
That's it. I know. I hear it.
My first job right out of college, we were doing Shakespeare, a repertory company. We were doing Henry V. I was just telling the story the other night. We were doing Henry V. We had a cast of 17 when we started rehearsals. And it was so bad that by the time we opened, we had a cast of 8. And we were all playing 3 and 4, 5 different characters because we didn't have anybody. And the one night I was changing I was playing the French maid, because why not? That's stupid. And some other guy, and the guy who was playing Henry V skipped the most famous speech, St. Crispin's Day. Just skipped it. He said, today's St. Crispin's Day, and that's about all I got tonight. Skipped it. So I came down, and I still had a boob in. I was crazy. But it was thrilling, and it taught me more than sitting in a classroom for $25,000.
Yeah.
It's
100,000% correct because those that amount of money is going in every year. And the thing is, I think what's changing is the internet has changed everything.
Sure.
Now you're able to, with tools like LinkedIn Learning, lynda.com, you're able to now get formal training, not in the arts necessarily, but you are able to get formal training on job things that won't break your bank. It's $50 a month and you can consume all that. Yeah. But for the arts, I'm of a firm believer that I learned nothing arts based from school. When I went for film, I didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
I really only learned when I was on set with working professional DPs, working professional directors, and I listened and I shadowed them and I learned. But that was about the extent of where I would say my college experience grew me, because everything else was me being a self-starter.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it goes back to kind of the ancient theater stuff.
Yeah.
When you wanted to start out, you were a spear chucker. You know, you stood in the back and you had a sword for a scene, and you watched how everybody else did it. And then you said, okay, that's what I do. Okay, look at how you watched and you did it. You were in the room. And I think there's something really valid to that of just keep doing it. Just keep making something and you'll figure it out, or you won't. And it'll be terrible.
Yeah, but you said earlier too, it's okay to have those terrible things, but
oh, absolutely. You learn a lot.
You learn a lot, and by doing the hands-on, by creating those products, I think that might be, like, this is harkening back to the beginning of the interview, but that might be the way where you really say, I'm meant or not meant for this. And a lot of people will get in the category of chasing that dream.
Yes.
But not have any practical realization that, oh, I've never stepped on a set before. I've never, as dumb as that sounds as an actor, I've only really ever done like my own stuff for YouTube, or that's just, it doesn't always cut it.
Yeah. Well, you have to be in the room. You know, you have to be in the room. You have to see what it is about. You have to see how it fits on you. You know, I realized, I think not late, but just at the time I did, I'd been an actor for a long time, and then I started writing my own show. And that fit so much better because I have great friends who are wonderful actors who have actors' patience, which I don't have. You know, because as an actor, you have to be like, oh, okay, well, this job might happen and I might get to play this. But you kind of have to throw yourself into it, and what happens. And there's no real self-determination. That would drive me crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, it's unreal.
So I found that I was creative in a different way. And wanted to do something, projects that I wanted to do. So that's where the writing kind of came in and was like, okay, well, that's what the other piece of this is going to be. And realizing that was where my temperament was much more suited than just being kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to go in and play a monster for a toe fungus commercial today, and then I'm going to go and try to be Hamlet somewhere else.
Right.
You know, it's different.
Well, I applaud your persistence and your effort, because it's clear, I think, to anybody who watches this as well, but I think it's very clear that that you are like a model of what you should be. And it doesn't matter what I'm trying to say really is that I think there's a level of confusion of how much needs to be put in.
Sure.
And as you've said it, it's no, if something's due today, it was actually due weeks ago.
Oh, sure.
You had to be set and ready to go.
I always think of that. Did you ever see have you ever seen The Godfather Part 2?
No, I never watched that.
Oh
I
my
need to.
God!
I can't believe I haven't.
All right. There's a great scene in it where Lee Strasberg, who's a very famous acting teacher,
I know him.
Al Pacino's acting teacher, is in the movie and plays Hyman Roth. And Al Pacino says to Hyman, you shot this guy, and he killed somebody, and Hyman Roth says, "This is the life we've chosen." And an acting teacher said that to me at a very young age, and said, "That's the thing. You have to know what the game is you're getting into. It's going to be a tough life. There's going to be lots of ups and downs, but this is the life you've chosen. If you want something else, you can go work in an office somewhere. You can go answer somebody's phone. You can do that. And that's a different life. And it's not better or worse. But if you're going to be an actor, you're going to have a lot of times where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know what's going to happen. And you have to realize that the perks of getting to do what you do also come with prices.
Right.
And I think realizing that early on is like, oh, okay, well, this is the life you've chosen.
And there's something so exciting about that, isn't there?
Oh, sure.
You have to be in for the journey.
It's thrilling.
Yeah.
It's thrilling.
Yeah.
But it's also,
It's terrifying. It's
terrifying at every minute.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about it at the show. I said, it was very fun. We're going to write a play. Oh, how wonderful. No, I decide that instead of writing one play, I'm going to write 6. Just because why not? That sounds stupid. But it's been so fun, and it's the thing of getting to do this amazing thing with this amazing cast and saying, okay, we're going to jump into this new adventure, and it's going to be complicated and messy and uncertain at times, but through the process, we're going to get through it and make something hopefully that is unlike any other experience you could have.
Absolutely, and it sounds like it. It sounds very exciting.
I hope so. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's very unique for theater. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Really fun. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, I don't know if you wanted to. You can take a moment if you want to just tease what you got coming up, your show.
Sure.
And all that.
So Ravenswood Manor runs October 17th through November 24th at the Celebration Theater. You can get tickets at celebrationtheater.org. I am... I'll be doing that for coming up. And then we're doing a big show at Joe's Pub in New York on December 7th at 9:30, celebrating my 10 years in cabaret. Holy crap.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and next year my book, The Gay BCs, comes out through Chronicle Books. And I have a new novel that's coming out next year as well. So
wonderful.
Lots of work.
Lots of writing.
Lots of writing.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
It's wonderful that
Absolutely.
all that you're doing, and I hope you are really encouraged, everybody. I think it's important to see those, like especially in my range group, to see those older than us by a few years.
Only a few years.
And there's no way to say that. It's
also very early.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No,
well,
it's
anyway.
fine. It's fine. Be young. Be young.
Be
while
young
you
for
can.
now. It won't be young forever, but pursue those things that you want to pursue. There's a way to make it happen as long as you're determined and you attack it and you really go after it like we talked about.
Sure.
So be sure to check out everything we got coming at 1 in 20 Show on everything. Subscribe, do all that. And thank you for watching. We will see you guys soon.